This is a part of life. Original Baraman along with the two bad, wicked youths of rap. God mercy, whoa.
What's the business? Talk paper when I'm riding by. They know it's drizzle, he the truth off the east side. I know who ain't got my money because they ducking high. I grind for me and mine. I got the green light. I got to get it how I live it. That means front line. I got them zips, I got that soft, I got that hard white.
Got that hard white, like that hard egg. Since he's called Jeem, I'm assuming his first name begins with J. And since he lives in Chicago, he's probably named Jamal. Jamal Achi. We're waiting. That's funny, says two criminals. We've also got Menta here saying, at George S.Y., you got it wrong. He's going to reveal that he's been a Mexican LARPing as Nanny the whole time. Jeem lore. As per the book, it is redacted, apparently. Jamal is here. Kangs assemble from O Block. All right, so we've got everybody here. We're going to open up Do Flow. I'm going to let you guys come in, and that's it. There is no topic today. Feel free to mentally masturbate. So I'm going to pin that. Anybody can come in, and if nobody's going to talk that much, I will be discussing part of my time, my tribe, my childhood, who I is, and what I tend to do, or what I have done. Trying to refresh the video to make sure we're good. Yeah, looks decent enough. So I'm waiting. I don't see anybody. I don't see nothing. You have Yalda Boath. It's a Gnostic serpent. Hello, Gene. May the monad bless you. Let's talk about gaming. Well, I don't really game much. I play WoW, but that's about it. That's World of Warcraft for you, Kafir. Hello to Crook. How's it going?
Doing good. Almost the weekend, so that's always something to look forward to.
That's good. That is very good. We have a few callers today. We have Alex the Copt, and we have me, ASF. Alex the Copt, I will let you in 1 moment. Crook, how was your day? You commit any burglaries?
Oh, I wish, but I got stopped halfway through all of them.
They got you.
Exactly. Yeah, so just one thing I wanted to talk about is that it's in regards to Turkey and its efforts in the Middle East. Do you think that they're going to start exerting more influence in Syria right now, or do you think they're being undermined by Saudi and what Israel is doing in the south? And after that, how do you think the Druze as a whole are going to be reacting to Israel's advancements in Syria? Do you think they're going to be unanimously in support? Because I made my case that Israeli Druze are a different bunch than Lebanese and Syrian Druze.
Well, first of all, everybody knows that the Druze are rat shit. Second of all, as I've talked about many times, I do think that the situation in Syria, I'm trying to get a good map of Syria up. Whatever, this is fine. None of these organizations have good maps, but I think that the Saudis are being kind of ignored by a lot of people. Like you said, I think the Saudis do possess the lion's share of victory here. So even though, Syria, quote, quote, is a united country, it's really not. The yellow with the Kurds, it's getting weakened, and you're probably right. What'll happen is the Jolani Shara government will continue fighting the Kurds, and then they'll push them further northeast, and then Turkey will claim, hey, this is our border. They'll probably try to extinguish them, and they'll all have to go to Iraq. Not all, but the ones who do not integrate into this new Syria or obey the Turks will have to just go to Iraq. As for the Druze, for those of you unaware, the Druze in Sueda, so in the south of Syria, have declared that they are autonomous, they don't belong to Syria, and they have no loyalty to the government. And Israel basically said, anybody who goes south of Damascus, we will annihilate. And we are essentially, they didn't say they're going to annex it, but they are now the guardians of southern Syria. So already the war just, quote, finished, and it's already back. The coast is barely even integrated into the new government. The south is not part of it anymore, and the northeast still belongs to the Kurds, and the far north to the Turks. This is not a country. So I think the Saudis will step in and save Syria, so to speak.
Yeah, because what makes this interesting is if Druze will start to find themselves in a position to Jewish people in the Middle East in the early 1900s, because if they are seen as being backed by Israel and they have this almost secessionist state in the south of Israel, that might increase a lot of anti-Druze sentiment that already exists within Bilad al-Sham or with Druze workers in the Gulf states. So, are they going to be a second Israel? That's what I'm saying. They're already an ethno-religious group to an extent because they didn't really marry outside of their faith. And while they are descended from a variety of Arabic and Levantine peoples, they actually are a bit unique on the genetic map due to not marrying with other people. So again, another ethno-religious group.
Well, I don't think they're going to be a new Israel. I actually think that they will probably just belong to Israel. I think the south of Syria, Israel already took the Golan Heights. They've already taken the most important strategic parts that border Lebanon. They're not leaving parts of Lebanon. And I think they might not full-scale annex southern Syria, but even before this Druze thing, they were claiming villages there. So I just think that southern Syria will just be a no man's land where Israel has the most power, and they'll just come and go as they please and feed militias to Jordan or up to the northeast with the Kurds and do whatever they want with a completely being immune to other countries. I'm going to add in Alex the Copt because he got here first. How's it going, Alex?
What's going on, Gene?
I'm good.
Not that much. I'm here with my buddy Two Crooks, who, if you don't know, is he's Armenian, so he is a cousin of an Oriental persuasion to yourself. How's it going?
Yep. I'm good. Just doing some work for a course I'm taking. I did have one question.
Who keeps leaking our addresses to Mossad and the FSB and CIA
I don't
and
know.
MI6? Yeah. By the way, just until he comes back, I just wanted to say that I'm bringing this up because my parents are actually in Lebanon right now to visit family because the situation's calmed down. But, I always feel tense that something could happen. They've been very lucky with Lebanon so far, but, there's always this idea that something could happen, and I don't want to wake up to a text message that there's this attack by Israel, some random militia or whatever, and
I think most of the heat has cooled down. Alex the Cop, we didn't hear anything you said. Your internet went out. Why don't you repeat what you were saying?
Oh, I was just wondering if there's any sources that talk about the Syriac influence of the Quran's oral tradition.
Sources. Well, I haven't read many books on that. I read any books on that in particular. I've just read history books where a footnote here or there will mention it. I would maybe consider looking at Sebastian Brock's study of the Syriac Church, and particularly with kind of the oral recitations that the Syriacs did. I think that you can find some interesting similarity with that and the manner in which the Quran was spread and the influence of its written material. I don't really subscribe to the Syriac Quran theory or anything. I don't think it really matters, like whether it was written in Arabic or Syriac kind of makes no difference. What matters more is what was the inspiration and who were the Christians that they were around, because the Syriacs, they were the majority Christians in Arabia. So in the East, you had a mix of the Church of the East Nestorians and the Syriac Oriental Church. And then in Yemen, you had, and southern Saudi, modern day Saudi, you had the Nestorians. So wherever the Arabs were at that time, the Syriac Church was going to be the biggest influence. Not really like the Copts or the Greeks or anything, but they were going to get it from different Syriac churches. So that's one thing to keep in mind.
Okay.
But I would look at Sebastian Brock, and I'm sure there are authors who talk about it. I know I found a book at some point that mentioned some kind of similarity. I'll have to post it in a comment later because now I'm forgetting the title of that book. But there is material on it. But it's not like you're going to find a 700-page tome saying, hey, we have undeniable proof that the Quran is Syriac Christianity. It's more like there's influences here and there.
Yeah. No, I've heard that. I know there was one person by the name of Mark Dury. I think he's an Australian who has studied or has some scholarship in Islam, but
I'll
that's
definitely
talked
check
about.
that out.
Sorry, what?
I'll check that out then. I'll check him out. I'll see what he
Okay.
has to say.
And then I think there was one more. I think Wesley Huff mentioned him. I'm trying to remember
Wesley
that
Huff.
name. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. Anything else you want to talk about?
Um, I did, but I kind of forgot. So,
Well, feel free to hang. Like we're just hanging today,
all right.
so there's no set
Oh, I
topic.
did have a question. Wasn't there like a Trinitarian Muslim who was on last live stream?
That was the man of the hour, Anam,
Yeah,
the Indian Trinitarian Muslim.
yeah. Would you consider him still Muslim at that point if he considers himself a Trinitarian?
Yeah, because Christians just referred to Muslims as Mohammedans, meaning follower of Muhammad. They didn't care whether they had the monad or the unity or the Trinity or whether they were Shi'i or Sunni or anything. If you followed Muhammad, you're a Muslim. That's it. I mean, I don't really care what their theology is, to be honest. If you if you believe the Quran is God's word, whether you believe in the Hadith or not doesn't really matter. I don't care what the metaphysics are. If you follow that man as a prophet, you're part of that religion, even if you're considered a heretic by everybody else. Even like a Messianic Jew is still part of Christianity, even if everybody else thinks he's rat's shit, as we say on this channel.
Hmm. Yeah, because like, isn't there like a verse in the Quran that says Allah is three of three? Wouldn't that kind of be labeled as tritheism?
He says Allah is not the third of three.
Or
So
not the third of three, yeah.
saying
Excuse me.
don't make God into a trinity. Allah is not the third of three. He's quoting people like Theodore Abu Qurra and the people who came before him spoke like that about the Trinity. They say God or Allah the Father, he is the third of three persons. So you have one, two, three. So the Quran is answering them the same way.
Yeah, because I think there was a letter that I don't know if it was from Oriental or um like someone from the Assyrian Church of the East, but sorry, I meant Copt, or well, they label as Jacobites and I forget the other one. But there was a letter that was talking about Christ's nature and his divinity, and it seems as if there was a Quran verse that was responding to the letter.
If you could give me a source for that, I'd love to check it out another time. That'd be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, you can stay in if you want, but I'm gonna let the next guy in just because I want to keep us moving. Because I can only have 7 people in chat, so if anyone's trying to get in and you can't, just wait till it clears out. Me as F, how are you doing?
I'm good.
Cool. What do you want to talk about?
No, I don't know. I just joined to join. I'll go now probably.
Oh, you can stay. It's fine. You don't have to have a topic to mention. Let me get rid of this Syrian civil war page for now. We don't need that. Okay. Let me get Kai in here. He's been waiting a little. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, bro.
What's up?
I'm just doing math homework. So I
Math?
decided, yeah. But I'm able to listen at the same time.
All right, good. Yeah, I'll let you guys hang for a little, but if we start getting too many people trying to join, I'll kick, and then you guys can come back if you want after that. Yeah, so that's interesting. What do you guys think of the topic? We were just discussing the Quran and the Syriac Church.
I know nothing about Eastern or Christianity, Eastern lore, to be honest.
Gene, you speak Arabic, right?
No, I'm hardly fluent. I'm
Okay, but you have a familiarity with it, right?
somewhat, yeah.
So somebody explained to me that theory about the Quran being a ripoff of Syriac documents in some fashion, and it's about the like dots or something, right? And so
Yeah. So basically, I don't hold to that, but and thank you for the super chat, Luke, and the Greek guy before. I don't hold to that, but basically the theory is because in Hebrew and written Arabic, they didn't originally have these markers for the vowels that it could be interpreted wildly differently. But I mean, if you're going to go down that road, couldn't you just say the same about Hebrew copies of the Old Testament? So I don't find it that convincing. As for the Syriac stuff, again, I don't think it makes a huge difference. Like whether it was in Syriac or whether it was in Arabic, it's still not a Christian text, you know?
Yeah. Okay.
Good question. I don't think like people who say like, oh, I cracked the code because it's Syriac. It's like, all right, it's still gonna have to do with the same verses and stuff. Yeah.
I feel like people are reading too much into it. It was another religion that branched off from some version of Christianity at some point, and thus we have Islam. It's not that complicated, in my opinion. There doesn't need to be a grand conspiracy behind it. And if we're talking about linguistic influence, well, it would make sense. The Syriac languages or Aramaic languages were widespread in the Middle East by then, the way Arabic is now. Even many tribal Arabs or Arab states like the Nabateans were speaking Aramaic as their lingua franca or as an administrative language. It's just that later on Arabic becomes super dominant. So of course the Quran would probably have some linguistic influence from Aramaic, just as an inevitability.
And Arabic comes from Aramaic too. So like the Arabic that we all speak, or in my case, butcher, it would be Nabatean Aramaic becomes that Arabic. So there are going to be similarities. But I know that there's some people who say like, oh, if you read the Quran in a Syriac fashion, it's actually teaching Orthodox Christianity. I don't know about that. I don't know if I would hold that to be the true.
I think it's just reflective of like like translation purity, like in just general like society. Like people are learning languages to like read in the original text, but it's like, I'm sorry, but I don't think you're ever going to grasp the original text like a native unless you like go 10 years, really dedicate yourself. And even then, it's like you have this perfectly good English translation right here. All the great books are translated into English. It's the lingua franca.
Well,
and so to me,
Arabic
learning
of the Quran is not what people speak. It's like Old Latin. It's a different type of language.
Yeah. But, I'm just reflective of the general feelings in society where it's like these languages are like codes that need to be cracked. And it's really like, no, where, the morphology is the same in every language pretty much.
Yeah. If you with the internet, you could just look up the original translation for one or two words to find it if you have questions on that. But I don't think, like when Protestants say, I know all the biblical Greek, therefore I win. I don't know if that's a great argument.
Yeah,
even if you have the right words,
it's the same argument where it's like the texts were lost or whatever.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Also, just for the audience, to give you an idea that Quranic formal written Arabic can be different from spoken Arabic. From my basic knowledge, I can give you guys an example. Just from how it sounds, you can tell it's different. So if I want to say, I want to go to school in Arabic, formal Quranic like that, it would be, Ana uridu adhab ila al-madrasa. But if I were to say it in spoken Arabic, like this is a mixture, I think, of Khalij and Levantine Arabic, it would be Ana bidi ruht ila al-madrasa. So you can already feel some differences in what I said. That's how different Quranic formal written Arabic is from what's spoken.
That's pretty Lebanese, actually, where you said that.
Oh, good.
Ana bidi ruh al-madrasa. Yeah, that's exactly how it's perfect. Let me answer this question real quick. Greg, man, Gene is good. Too good. I don't know about that. We've got Bat Beyond saying, so far I haven't seen a single female Gene viewer. I'm starting to be convinced women don't exist. I have seen some, but they're in the comments. And also, you guys will be surprised. I think most women prefer to be anonymous, like in terms of YouTube and stuff. So they don't use like female names half the time.
Are we sure they're not in the harem?
Who knows, man? You don't know what's happening when this camera is not on. I'm kidding.
After comments like that, I wouldn't blame them.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for Kai and me, ASF, if you guys don't have anything else you want to ask, I'm gonna make room for some more people. So feel free to join again.
Just not this topic. I'm not, because I'm more of a philosophy bro. I'm not really in the textual.
That's fine. Yeah,
I'm not a Dan McClellan condescending dude.
That's fine. Yeah, we're just vibing. So talk about anything, but feel free to rejoin. We're just gonna kind of clear it so that we have room for more people to pop in.
Thanks.
No problem. Thanks for calling in, guys. All right. How's it going?
Hey, Jim, what's up? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. How's it going?
It's all good. It's all good. I have like three topics that I think could be interesting. I wanted your opinion on, for example, what's happening in terms of, let's say, discourse around Christian nationalism and politics, in terms of, let's say, the revival of Carl Schmitt among people like Orem McIntyre, like Andrew Wilson, and like Jim Bob, who are like arguing about, let's say, the impossibility of the state to be constitutionalist, in the sense that if you have a powerful enough political ruler, that political ruler will not be able to be reined in by any written law, right? So they use that to argue that, let's say, rights don't exist and those kinds of things. But I think that's kind of a deviation, and I wanted to know your thoughts about that.
Yeah, so I don't know who Jim Bob is, but I know Gene Bob. No, I'm kidding. I know, yeah, Jim Bob and everything. I've spoken to Andrew Wilson a couple of times. Obviously, I've been on his channel twice now. I don't like speak to him on a regular basis. To be honest with you, I don't keep up too much, so I know that what he's doing a lot of debates with. Like, he has his usual kind of lighthearted stuff where he's debating some, I don't know, prostitute from OnlyFans, but then he also has the political stuff, and I've seen some of that. So, are you asking what is with the rise of the Christian national movement, and are they trying to do like a authoritarian government, stuff like that? Is that what you're asking?
Not exactly. I mean, more of the nitty gritty, like political philosophy kind of view, because let's say I'm very sympathetic to what they're trying to do. I think that as an Orthodox Christian, I think that Christianity should inform the state. I think that the West took, let's say, in terms of its philosophical history, took a very like weird route to separate church and state in a way that is kind of weird. But now the way to rejoin it is being tainted, let's say, in my opinion, by, let's say, modernistic ideas. And for example, Carl Schmitt, I don't know if your audience is familiar with it, or if you're familiar. I think you are probably. He was like a German political jurist, like a political philosopher at that time. And basically he made like very good criticisms against constitutionalism, against, let's say, liberal democracy. But the problem is that his alternative wasn't very good, and that's why he, at the end of his life, he fell into Nazism, right? And it's like, I have nothing against authoritarianism. I would consider myself an authoritarian in a proper sense, because I think that orthodoxy is leaning towards monarchy and towards like a strong unified ruler. But at the same time, it's like this question is bubbling up in different spheres. Like, for example, we have Jonathan Pajot, and we have, let's say, this English writer called Paul Kingsnorth, that he made a very good speech against, let's say, against Christian civilization, in the sense that he felt that Christian civilization, it kind of robs you of Christ, something like that. But I think that's kind of like what he said is very interesting, but it's actually kind of wrong, right? Because like our view is that the state should serve God, right? And I wanted to see what your perspective was in regards to these ideas bubbling up in practice, and what you thought about it in general philosophically.
Yeah, good question. So this is a complicated question, but I will answer it because it's not deep theology. I don't want to discuss deep theology right now, but that's a good political question. So basically, if you read the history, the Western method was the Pope is going to be the arbiter of Western civilization. So the West said the Pope is the government, and the government will follow the Pope. They will be under the Pope, and the Pope will decide secular and religious affairs, even stuff that has nothing to do with Catholicism whatsoever. The Orthodox model was found in the Byzantine Empire, where you have a secular quote quote government. Doesn't mean not religious, it just means they deal with the non-religious parts of civilization, like taxes and how we buy meat and stuff like that, and the military. And then the Orthodox Church deals with society and spiritual stuff. And so that was the model, where you had the strong government, and then the Orthodox Church would focus on the religious aspect, but the leader was still expected to be upholding Orthodox civilization. That's really the only way that Orthodoxy makes any sense. You have a leader, and he's Orthodox, but he's not a clergyman. And then you have the clergy, who are part, or at least accompanying, the government. So the idea of doing, a modern classical liberal democracy, but then also orthodox authoritarianism doesn't make any sense. We would have to have a different style of government. Now, in our current day, it's unrealistic to say that there's going to be some kind of orthodox conquest of the United States. It's ridiculous. But in places that are majority orthodox, they don't really have a reason not to implement something similar. So even though Russia has a lot of problems and people will say, oh, Putin's not a real orthodox and whatever, they are doing kind of what the Byzantines did in terms of governance. You have the guy who may or may not be that orthodox, but he's the leader of the secular affairs. And then you have the clergy, Patriarch Kirill. He's not in charge of the government, but he has a sizable influence over the country. And so that's supposed to be the way it works. But ideally, that man, Putin, and whoever else would rule that Orthodox country should themselves be a religious Orthodox Christian. So Kirill, he recently said he was upset that Vladimir Putin was going for a more multinational Russia. So that wouldn't be following the Orthodox way. Like, that wouldn't be following the Byzantine ways. Russia has nothing to do with mass migration from Turkmenistan. We have to care about what's going on here. This is an Orthodox civilization. And so Putin's kind of like half Soviet, half Orthodox, and he's not really one full either one. So that would be that. For America and stuff, I think it's really irrelevant right now because Orthodoxy is way too small in this country.
Just for comparison, Jim, would you say that model is almost similar to what a lot of Gulf monarchies do, like the emirs and the kings? They are the leader of, say, secular affairs, but they're also expected to uphold Islamic civilization, like in Kuwait, Saudi, Qatar, like that. Would you say it's almost similar?
I think Saudi Arabia is a really good example of, you have a highly religious leader, but he does not dabble in theology. He just oversees the secular part of society. That means, just not the religious parts, but it's still a religious country. And then you have the actual clerics, meaning the Wahhabi imams and scholars. That would be actually what the Saudi. So when people, like, if you're going to criticize Saudi Arabia, criticize because you don't believe in Islam, but you can't really criticize that partnership style because that is what the Byzantines did. So they would just do that, but for Orthodox Christianity, not for Islam.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, a lot of times they still have a modern economy, but they still try to keep the civilization and tradition alive. So an Orthodox equivalency, I'm guessing, would be your ideal, right?
Yeah, that would be the way to do it. So when you see Christians going, oh, like these barbarian Muslim countries, okay, some of them are kind of like barbarian rundown countries, but the Gulf nations are not barbarian countries. Having religious influence in a government is normal. But unlike with Catholicism, we don't have the grand patriarch of the church actually ruling everything in the country. He just accompanies the countrymen. So there.
Right.
Yeah. So, Jim, I wanted to ask you, if you don't want to dabble in like deep theology, tell me, but like, because this question has a theological leg that is very strong, but like, do you think that rights have an ontological reality in God? Let's say, laws that a just society or a pseudo just society might have, because from my perspective, I would say that if you read St. Maximus, you kind of get the idea that within the mind of God exists every single person that exists, not only in their, let's say, deified form, but rather as they are and as they were and as they would be in time, in let's say creation. So rather, whatever is good in your society exists and participates in the energies of God, and justice is an energy of God. So do rights exist?
Well, that is a very metaphysical, theological question, so I'm not going to go too deep into it. But do rights exist, you're saying, outside of a country making a law? Like, are you saying if there was no countries and there's no laws, are there still rights? Is that what you're asking?
I'm asking whether the rights that do exist within a society are just, let's say, arbitrary, let's say, social contracts, like modern philosophers would argue, or if they do participate in the energies of God in a manner that makes them have an ontological reality.
Oh, I see. Well, to be honest with you, and not to overly disappoint, but I think that's a little too theological, metaphysical for this subject matter. But really what I would say is that the Orthodox view is that those rights would have an existence, but they're not like objects. Okay, like you can't go into the sky and find morality. It's not going to be sitting there waiting for you, but it would be like an idea inside God's mind, so to speak. That's the best way to explain it. So that would be the position to answer it quickly.
No, that's fantastic. That's good enough. And I wanted to know if you could speak something about, let's say, the relationship between earthly justice and divine justice, and let's say, earthly law and divine law.
So you ask what the distinction between those two things. Okay, so divine law are things that some are natural. Here's the thing that you need to understand. I'll try to answer it quickly. In the Bible, the laws that God gives to the world, some are natural, some are just God's opinion. So, for example, you cannot naturally know that idolatry is bad. Like, there's nothing that physically stops someone from India committing Hindu idolatry, right? Otherwise, if they knew naturally it was wrong, they probably wouldn't be doing it. But you do know naturally that you're supposed to love your parents. So, in the commandments of God, when it says to love your parents and respect them, that's a natural law that's already on this earth. But when God says, don't make any graven images, that's just his opinion. That's not a natural law, because people do it all the time, and it's exceedingly popular. So that is something that's God's opinion.
So, how will we differentiate between, let's say, a natural law and, let's say, because that wasn't the framing that I was thinking when I even proposed the question. I mean,
Oh, okay.
what, like, I wasn't thinking in a more like Western kind of sense. I was more thinking in terms of, let's say, St. Paul's teaching of the law, right? Because, for example, right now I'm in a very strong dispute with the priest at my parish, because they're very liberal and they teach stuff like, they teach a form of cheap grace, rather, that like judging is always wrong, when St. Paul teaches that criticizing is kind of a duty that you have, let's say. And what they said, stuff like, for example, justice is incompatible with love, which is ridiculous, because justice is an energy of God, right? And the way that I'm like articulating my thoughts and thinking about, let's say, this, was, they used their own interpretation of a story, the woman caught in adultery, right? And they say, well, Christ didn't judge that woman, and she was guilty. And my response to that is that would be a Pharisaical reading. Like, you're basically saying that Christ had to abolish the law in order to pardon the woman, but the woman was already repentant. And the story does not teach, judge not, right? That's not the teaching of that story. Of course, that is present, and it's judge not lest ye be judged. Like, those two go together. And my point was that story's main idea is that the Pharisees are wrong in trying to oppose God's law with, let's say, with God's mercy, because God's law's main goal is to further repentance, right? But where I would say my knowledge of theology runs out is that, well, if God's law is to further repentance, like, what's isn't like worldly law supposed to, let's say, aim towards God's law, and in also furthering repentance and all the baggage that comes with that?
Yeah, so to answer that in a brief way, one thing, the story of the woman caught in adultery that people seem to miss is that there's the Pharisees throughout the New Testament are trying to trick Christ. So they want him to punish her. Like, they're not like shocked that he didn't do it. I'm sure they assumed he wouldn't do it, because they wanted him to do that so that they could claim, oh, look how much of a cold heart he has. He stoned this woman. And so they try to do the same thing with the Sabbath and all these other. They spy and they wait for him to break the law, or they expect him to do the law properly, but then they still criticize him for it. So Christ always finds an answer that they weren't looking for, and that usually annoys them. Like, they asked, what if a woman is married 7 times and she goes to heaven, or in the resurrection, which husband will she be with? They're always trying to trip him up. So the reason he doesn't do that, number one, it is out of mercy, but it's also out of the fact that they were trying to force him into doing justice, which you cannot force the Son of God to do anything. And then number two, the actual law that's in Moses' law says you have to have multiple witnesses. And it doesn't say that she had multiple witnesses. It says that a person saw or heard something. So even technically, again, they were trying to trick him up on that and say, he didn't have the proper number of this and that. But no, you're right. Like, the law should ideally be going towards that. But with these liberal types, they get too carried away with the universal type, universalism. So they try to make it so that the most important thing in the world is that everybody gets a fair shot. But that's not always fair, because why should an innocent child have the same shot as like a serial murderer? So we have to have laws, and there's hundreds of laws that are very severe about crime and stuff, and most of those Jesus never talks about. He never says, oh, hey, by the way, the laws about people who murder one another is gone now. He says, don't commit murder. He doesn't say if someone has, you can't punish them. So I think a lot of them are trying to fill in stuff with like Enlightenment morality. So I've definitely, that would be my answer to that. And I do want to answer a couple of these text chats really quick. We have a guy LARPing as Pope Francis. Ortho-Saxon says, Christ says to take the plank out of your eye before pointing at the speck in your brother's. Therefore, if you take out your plank, you can freely judge others. Or rather, if you're going to judge others, just be aware that you yourself will probably be judged for your own things. It doesn't say you can never judge. Let's see. We have a few other people here. I'm going to let 4chan and Nick in real quick. How's it going?
Hey, buddy, what's going on, man?
Not much, just open discussion here.
I'm really liking the conversation. I really think, fortunately, I joined, so I didn't get to hear his name. Really enjoying the questions he's asking you.
Yeah, they are good questions. Definitely. We've had the last few minutes have been very strong, actually.
So, what you guys been talking about? I joined when.
Oh, well, he was asking about, what's the difference between like divine and earthly law, and how come there are some liberal parishes and stuff. And I was explaining that comes from that mixture of Enlightenment and universal stuff, where they're very afraid to punish people because everybody has to have the same shot. I was saying you can't all have the same shot, because like a serial rapist shouldn't have the same shot as an innocent kid. So people do deserve different things. You can't treat everybody the exact same way. You have to be treated according to the situation that calls for it.
Okay. You can hear me still? Because I think this is lagging.
Yeah, it's probably lagging a second or two, but I can't hear you. So go ahead, fire away.
So yes, I was gonna ask, is the Byzantine Empire the perfect example of how Orthodox government should be run?
Depends on the time period. Good question. But it depends on the time period. I would say there's developments, and so maybe like not the first 100 years, but then they mature in like the 800s, 900s. Codex of Justinian makes a very great impression, and then it's kind of added on to in the 1100s. As you get closer to the fall of Constantinople, the answer would be no, because the empire gets very small and its secular power is basically non-existent. So really the only thing left is just religion at that point, because the military is not doing anything. There's no civilization. They're surrounded by the Ottomans on every side. But in those certain time periods, then I would say yes. We have Daniel Hakikachu has decided to call in. Wow. Good to see you.
Oh, really? It's going to be interesting.
I'm
hey, take me off because I'm lagging like crazy.
Okay.
Appreciate
it. Yeah, you're out of here, buddy. Anyway, do you have any other questions you'd like to ask while you're here?
I have plenty, but I think it would be better to explore them at some other time, because some of them are like very deep.
Okay. Thank you for calling in. Those are really good questions.
Oh yeah, if I could just add one more thing in regards to your church. I think what they're afraid of is acknowledging that a lot of the time the truth in regards to judging is that the truth is generally in the middle. Yes, we have to call out and judge evil when we see it. That doesn't mean we're going to be psychopaths who just go around and start condemning everyone we randomly see on the streets. I think people are afraid of choosing an answer that's in the middle these days because they want everything to be an extreme. And in this case, it's because they want the extreme, oh, everyone is saved, never judged ever, because they're afraid they're going to do something that's going to get them sent to hell eternally, when in reality, it's really is sometimes a case-by-case basis. Judge evil when you see it. That doesn't mean you're a psycho, but that's not good enough for some people.
Definitely. Yeah, thank you very much for the questions. You're free to stay in the lobby. Kai, you're back. What on earth do you want?
Well, we're talking about interesting stuff, so I'm here now.
Okay. Yeah. What would you like to add to that conversation?
I instantly forgot what it was. My mind just deleted everything. What was
Maybe
it again?
Daniel Hakikachu would know the answer.
Oh, Daniel Hakikachu, I love you, man.
We have Ayatollah Khomeini in the stream.
Ah, perfect. Khomeini has been brought back from the brink. Apparently, it wasn't Sean Connery the whole time. Now it's actually he's a different person, and he's back. Anyway.
Oh, we were talking about like middles, extremes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead. You guys talk. Go ahead.
Yeah, I noticed that a lot of these people, a lot of secular people, it's the do no harm. They have this like non-aggression principle where it's like you have your opposing idea and you have your opposing idea. Just don't judge me about what I have going on privately. It's kind of the whole Joe Biden Christianity type thing. Like
Joe
you
Bidet.
stay in your little corner and I'll stay in my little corner. And then we'll all be a fractured little miserable society.
Well, I do like I'm the first one to completely destroy them and demolish them in person and burn bridges if I have to. Like I'm a barbarian. I have no problem with that. But to defend them since they're not present, like a lot of our monastics, they have very strong language that they can then turn against you. Like for example, a lot of there are a few people who are quote mining Saint Paisios, like to at me to tell me how much of a Pharisee I am and this and that. And fair enough. Like some of the language like really does support their claim. Like they say, like, for example, Saint Paisios says straight up, like, you should not criticize anybody, and like if somebody wrongs you, like you should ask forgiveness of them, right? And if you take it literally, it's like that's the most cucked solution ever. But like what would you say to someone who throws those quotes at you and does the sola patristica thing of like just using saints out of place, and those saints in particular and those teachings in particular?
Yeah, well, my answer would just be different saints say different things. They're not infallible, and they're also bound to their context, who they are, and what their life is. Saint Paisios, he had a more aesthetic life, so he's going to emphasize kind of the ideal. And ideally, would humans hate each other? No. Ideally, would you want to judge people if everybody's acting good? Would you want to be a good person? Yeah. Ideally, would you want to be surrounded by peace? Sure. But then he also says stuff like, oh yeah, there's a prophecy where there's going to be a world war and a third of the Turks are going to die. I mean, that's pretty harsh stuff too. So there's a balance. Like when St. Paisios was saying that, he's kind of talking about in your just community with fellow believers, but he clearly doesn't think very highly of people who are enemies of the church. Like he straight up says, there will be a war and Russia will destroy all of these Turks and stuff, and that's just a good thing. It's a good thing that we will be victorious over the Turks. So he doesn't seem to be this total pushover that some people tend to make him out to be. These are just advice of life in the ideal situation. But when it comes to war and things that are bad in life, most of the Orthodox saints will say, yeah, you got to defend yourself. Okay, great. You have to defend the country. Go ahead. Those are the kind of things. So my advice would be you have to read everything they're saying, not just what they say on one topic.
Yeah, and what do you think about, let's say, the difference between a personal enemy and, for example, somebody who's like teaching, let's say, wrong doctrine? For example, like I'm not gonna the approach that I took for this particular problem that I'm having with these priests is that I'm not going to create a scandal, because there are a lot of new catechumens at church, and I don't want to scandalize these kids who like probably got here because of the internet, and like to see these, like I'm going to tell them like super subtly, personally, one-to-one, look, these priests are liberal, but I'm not gonna like go throw hands with a priest over like these things, because it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
I agree. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, no, you definitely don't want to cause scandal. I think you're doing the right thing here. If people have questions, give them a forewarning, say, hey, just, you know, this guy streaks a little liberal, but if you're enjoying the liturgy and stuff, I mean, you know, whatever. Like, we're not here to, you don't want to cause scandal. I think that makes sense.
Oh
Oh, wait
yeah,
a
I'm
minute.
having the same problem too as
We
a
have another
Catholic.
gene. Wait 1 second. We have another
Okay.
gene. Help, Mossad stole one of our hairs and cloned us. I'm stuck in a Mossad ran prison right now. Send help. That's
Oh.
sad for my twin, but unfortunately there can only be one, so just let him stay in the prison. Anyway,
Oh
go
yeah,
ahead.
hey Masad, they're right over here. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is the stream.
The Nemesis G mark.
Yeah. Go ahead, Kai. What were you saying?
Yeah, so like when I was getting confirmed in the Catholic Church, like, you know, it was very welcoming and opening in this parish. And I chose for my godparent this, you know, this random older lady. I get to know her more, very progressive, very Vatican II. So I'm like, and I'm having the same tension because I go to 2 different parishes. And so one of them is way more Trumpian. I know, what the frick. But one of them, you know, they're more conservative, you know, they're more orthodox. And this other parish has a lot more progressives. And so I have to, so when she's ranting about all these things, I'm like, whoo. Like, you know, I don't want to scream at her, but it's like, you got to be a good person, but you also don't want to scream at her, but you also have to lay down the law. So,
Well, I think the important thing is having discernment and knowing your place, etc. So, like, if I were a fellow priest, I would definitely throw hands. I'm kidding. I'm not gonna throw hands, but I would definitely, let's say, challenge stuff. But since I'm a layman, I have no authority to like be messing with stuff. Like, I can speak with a priest, like privately, and tell him, look, dude, I think what you're doing is wrong. But I was kind of asking the question, maybe Jim can like give his opinion on when things have to, let's say, when things go too far. Because, like, yes, if somebody from your community wrongs you, do like Saint Paisios and say, okay, I'm sorry, right, within some reason. But if someone kills your kid, for example, you're not it's not going to be, oh, no, 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 but Christ like forgives. Like, you're not going to forgive right away, right? It's going to take some time, it's going to take a lot of things, and there has to be some justice done as well, some restitution. And the issue with, for example, the priest at my particular parish is that they have no concept of justice at all. So they mess up, someone then like gets upset about it, they tell him to suck it up. And that's a fundamentally broken system, because like you cannot tell people to suck it up perpetually, right? That feels like a cult, that feels like gaslighting. And eventually, even if it's wrong for it to happen, people rise up eventually. And this has happened in this particular parish for a long while, because these priests have these like radical theological ideas, which are not orthodox at all, and which only perpetuate injustice, right? So, and this happens everywhere. It's not just, let's say, among a church community, but rather, like, if you have a political ruler who's a tyrant, eventually they will depose him. But not because like the people are inherently, let's say, immoral, but rather because there's only so much that you can expect people to take before they just like behead you.
Yeah, and also, you know, the enemy of mine versus God's enemy thing. People keep saying, well, what if a fellow Orthodox saws off, you know, my uncle's head? I still have to, you know, not defend myself, right? Because he's fellow Orthodox. Well, if he's going to be grievously disobeying God's commands, and God says, do not murder. Now, killing in warfare is a little different, but to do not murder, and do not dishonor, and do not take away somebody's loved ones, and all these other things that are built into the law and surrounding the laws, then you would have to judge them via what the law says. So the law says somebody who's running around murdering has to be stopped, aka was usually execution. You would apply that. So somebody who says I'm Orthodox but then runs around killing his brothers and sisters, that's not orthodoxy, obviously.
Yeah, and your answer makes much more sense, especially if you're thinking about a history where there have been, let's say, majority Orthodox countries, and like they have had crime. So, like, what did you expect now? Like, secular law to not apply to people simply because, oh, we're all Orthodox here. No, of course that the criminal would be punished and like justice would be served, and that would make the community stay together. I mean, not just a parish community, but rather a community as a nation. If you don't have justice in your country, like, you're gonna rip yourself apart politically.
I agree. One last thing I'll add, and I know whoever's trying to join, give it a second. There's too many people in the lobby, but I am going to say, for example, like throughout time in the EO and in the OO tradition, uh, they believed in the death sentence even for fellow Christians. So if a fellow Christian started doing idolatry and telling everyone, "Hey, come with me, we're going to go worship Shiva or something," in Egypt, the Christians would consider that the death sentence, and that's actually never been repealed. Recently, they talked about it again. And they said, "Yeah, we're not going to repeal that." So that's an example where it's like you do love your society, but somebody who wants to harm your society, that's different. So thank you guys for the questions. I'm going to let some new people in, so feel free to join again at the end. But thanks again. Awesome questions today. All right, Kai, I will see you around. All right, whoever wanted to join, now's your time. Ahmed has been here a little while, so I'm going to let him in. How's it going?
Hi. So, I noticed you're talking about politics today. So, I think the prevailing opinion among religious people is that there should be some sort of strong authority to enforce moral rules of the religion in society. Well, I'm not gonna endorse or be opposed against that. I'm still largely agnostic myself, but I think I would say that I would give some uh, cautionary opinion, I guess, because I think a lot of what's bad with Russia today has its roots in czarist autocracy. So my thesis, if you can call it that, is you should be careful with what authority and what your government allows you to do to your society, because it's not always going to be on your side forever. And when it's not on your side, on your religion side, it could be used against your religion. So, for example, when the Tsar was deposed by the Soviets, a lot of old Tsarist institutions like the spies, the Okhrana, many of them were reformed into the NKVD, into the KGB, and used to oppress Orthodox Christians. And a lot of the control over the economy also was in the hand of the Soviets now. So my point is, rather than having this kind of top down, the government will rule everything, uh, and with the guide of the clergy, I think my preferable method would be, I'm just throwing ideas here, something like the Amish. That is to say, they don't have, well, they seem like very authoritarians, but really it's very easy to leave an Amish community. If you don't like it, well, just leave it. But that said, they have a strong society such that the consequences of not conforming to society is very severe, that you want to just voluntarily submit to society. So in short, I think it's better to rely on soft pressure first rather than governmental pressure. What do you think?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. In the case of Russia, that is correct, but I'd also say that that doesn't necessarily mean that nobody should ever try to have that type of society, because just in case there's a revolution, people could take it over. Now, I will say I'm not in favor of 100% government baby control over everything. I think government shouldn't baby everything. They shouldn't put endless burdens on the economy. Throughout most of history, even in these trad societies that people like to talk about, trade was pretty free, right? You had a lot of merchant societies where they might live in a strict Catholic society, but in terms of who they're trading to and where they go and their own ventures, they would act like a modern startup company, and they would just end up doing that stuff, but obviously translated to the 1300s or so. Now with Russia, actually the hardcore state control got a lot worse under Peter the Great, who did not like orthodoxy. He liked the Enlightenment and he liked Protestantism a lot more. So under Peter the Great, Catherine the Great, this all-encompassing government got more and more powerful. And then by the time of Tsar Nicholas, even though he was Orthodox, he was operating on Peter's system. He was operating on the semi-modernized Russia. So the Russia story is a little complicated, but I'm not in favor of the government being in control of literally every single thing. The Soviet destruction of privatization and collectivism was obviously quite monstrous. It failed in most of Russia. So good question. I do agree on principle with what you're saying, but I think you and I would have different ideas of how to function in that society, but I'm not into total rule of every single detail. I think that's kind of a disaster. You there? I think he froze. Two Crooks, are you there? Or is my
Yeah, I'm
computer
here.
froze?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
You know who got him. But yeah,
They got him.
once again, I think it's pretty similar to the system that the current Gulf monarchies have. Trade, the economy goes pretty freely, pretty modernly, but they do have their rules about society and tradition. That said, I think Ahmed's views might also be shaped by the fact that Indonesia was an authoritarian state for quite a while. I believe the leader was a Ahmed. Are you there?
Okay, thank you.
Uh,
Yeah.
I was just asking. Do you think some of your views might have been shaped by the fact that Indonesia was authoritarian? And I'm not like calling
Yes.
out Indonesia here.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
because I
it's
lived
fine.
in the
It's fine. It's
yeah.
it's fine. Yes, that's exactly what shaped my view. Like, um, be careful what you allow the crown to do because the crown will not always be on your side.
I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that. I don't know if you heard what I said, but I was just saying I don't believe in government having 100% dominion over everything. I think Peter the Great was wrong to do that to Russia, and that held a lot of consequences. And I think that if the Orthodox were able to properly counter the Enlightenment values and set up a system, then maybe they would have been a little better inoculated. But Russia went through a lot of trouble long before the revolution that happened with the Red versus White War there, and then the Soviet Union, obviously. Yeah, great question.
Yeah. So I'm not really familiar with the details itself of how Byzantine government operated, but I'm just saying this as a cautionary tale for everyone who thinks that all we need to do is just give the government all the power, and as long as they have the correct moral system, it's just like God will make everything right or something. Just be careful with that.
Yeah, I
Course
agree.
correcting, as we call it.
Yep, I agree. Good
Yeah,
point.
that's a good way of going about it.
Yeah.
Definitely a good point.
What else do I want to say?
Oh, by the way, I took a
Yeah.
picture for you today, but then my Skype wouldn't load on my phone. I was gonna DM it to you. I was on a street here in Chicago, and there was not like a consulate, but like just a little center. It was like where you go to buy Indonesian currency and send stuff to people in Indonesia. So I was gonna send you something, but they were closed. There you go.
Well, that's very kind of you, but thank you.
Yeah.
Send money to Indonesia. Fund Ahmed's whatever thing he wants to spend money on at the moment.
Maybe Two Crooks. Maybe you should just go there, and then you guys can overthrow the government and do your own economy.
Perhaps, but I would just like force the entire country to make Indomie noodles and nothing else.
There you go. The great export.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I could also relate, for instance, Armenia was under Ottoman, Russian imperial, and Soviet autocracies, Persian autocracies for quite a while. So that would influence my belief on the whole idea of authoritarianism and autocracy too. But at the end of the day, I don't really ascribe a specific political ideology to myself, mostly because I feel like everyone takes turns at being super cringe. But for instance, I wouldn't be completely adverse to living under something, say, like the Gulf system, but repurposed for Orthodox Christianity. But at the same time, I wouldn't be adverse to living under a more distributist system, which was, I believe, more Catholic, but again, repurposed for Orthodoxy, where government and is run more at the local and lower level. Either or could work, but it all depends on the fall of humanity. What I do want to also say, though, you guys will both like this. There's this weirdly racist thing that some democratic socialists, quote unquote, do and say that, oh, the reason why China, Russia, their communism developed under dictatorships was because, oh, it's inherent in the Asian and Russian systems, and they have no idea how Orientalist and racist they're being when they say that. It's always these European, Western European and American dem socks that say, oh, of course, Russia, China, Vietnam, those became autocracies. Have you seen their culture, their people? And it's like, okay, yeah, you're being a bit of a Eurocentrist, Euro-nationalist yourself, buddy.
Yep, that's a good point. I have noticed that before. Yeah, Ahmed, thank you for calling in. Do you have any other questions, or is that it for now?
I think that's about it for now. Thank you for your time.
All right, awesome. Thank you for calling in. guys, I don't have much time for much else, so I'm going to let in Zachary and Jag. So, Zachary, you go first. How's it going?
How's it going there, Gene? Just been kind of listening to the discussions on politics here. It's been quite interesting. I know I was watching just a YouTube video earlier where it's pretty much more of a secular person and giving a criticism I've heard quite a few times before that, like, Christian traditionalists and kind of monarchists are kind of sort of stuck in the past, so to speak, in that they look towards this ideal of the past and sort of monarchy in general as this sort of ideal that we cannot go back to and that we're sort of past monarchy. When, in a sense, I kind of understand the sentiment in the sense that I really don't view I like monarchy as a concept, but I don't view it as something that it would work very well or would be very hard to implement in a country such as the United States, especially. It does.
It would be impossible. It would be impossible in the USA. It makes no sense here.
Yeah, and I think what is much more likely, or at least kind of what it seems like, is that we're kind of going through Spengler's view of Caesarism a little bit. If you know a little bit about Oswald Spengler and his idea of sort of civilizational cycles and that people kind of turn towards authoritarian figures and kind of times of struggle. And, I definitely think we're more likely to kind of go down that route, especially in the next few years, decades, who knows, of where we're seeing this more sort of centralizing power around the executive role. And, I don't think like we'll go through like maybe a sort of a direct dictatorship of any means, but I definitely think we're going to see much more centralized and maybe a bit more authoritarian figure in the government along with that. And, I kind of am, and on that note as well, kind of a secondary question that sort of relates is, a lot of talk, at least in my circles of the country, is like what's going to happen with the sort of talks with Putin and Trump. It seems like there's been a lot of, at least in terms of some of the left-wing people in my area, are kind of criticizing him, saying he's kind of, Trump's going to like join Putin and it's, he's joining the Russians and they voted with him in the UN and this and that. And, kind of ask, what do you all think about that sort of thing? What's going on there?
Yeah, but I don't think Putin owns Trump or anything like that. I just think that Trump has very few allies in Western Europe. And so if Western Europe, even if Trump said, hey, I'm not on Putin's side, Western Europe still wouldn't be pleased with him. Like, it's just too much effort. It's too much effort to say, I'm going to throw away people that already could be an ally just because there's a chance I can convert these people who hate me into an ally. And Western Europe was probably never going to give Trump another chance, at least the mostly liberal parties that run those countries. So he probably just thought, hey, Russia I can actually deal with, and that's kind of it. Europe does not have the United States of America's best interests at heart. They want to live in a system where the U.S., Canada, and Western Europe are basically one block, and they kind of collectively share everything, but that really means that America pulls most of the weight. And so Trump doesn't believe in that. He believes that these nations should go for their own best interests and not believe in a message that binds them all together, which doesn't really work because they don't share any religious values. So it's like, what is the thing that binds the West together? Nobody seems to know at this point. But yeah, I mean, that would be my opinion toward that. There's not going to be a monarch in the United States, nor does there really have to be. And if you did do a monarch in a modern country, you could just do a constitutional monarchy like the UK. It doesn't have to be this like emperor who just rules everything. It's going to be hard to implement that, and it's usually not a great idea. So the whole point of the monarch is to provide stability. And if they're not doing that, then it doesn't really have a point. But I do not agree with modern ideas of republicanism. I think it's okay. It's good. It works in the United States. But the old Republicans from Western Europe, I think, made some grave errors in overthrowing all their monarchies. But whatever. That's already happened in the past.
Yeah, generally I'd agree with that. I also think there might be the sort of geopolitical shift as well, focusing on China. And the theory I've seen float around a lot is that the current administration wants to sort of drive a wedge between China and Russia, which might be a theory there. And, also as well, I think it's a sentiment among many Americans, especially, at least where I live, is that, they just don't care about Europe anymore. What does Europe do for us? And, why should we care about them if they don't hold any values related to us, But yeah, that's a bit it. Right now I'm taking politics of the Middle East for my college class. And so been kind of had all this information about Islam and everything, kind of been learning more about that lately. So interesting streams. Just wrote an essay on Israel and Palestine.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Well, that
Yeah, we
should
had to,
be a very smooth subject.
Okay.
yeah,
I'll give
we
you,
literally just had to give our own perspective on how to end the conflict. So
okay, I'll give you the correct answer for your final exam. Middle Eastern politics can be summed up with one sentence: a complete shit show.
yeah, pretty much. And the final project for that class is we're going to be role-playing different actors in the current Syrian conflict. So
Why don't you be the ghost of like Ariel Sharon at this point? Like,
yeah.
anyway, thank you very much for the call in. I got to let the last guy in, and I don't have too much time left, so thank you very much. Mr. Jag, how's it going?
Hey, James.
Hey, how
I've
are
been
you?
watching your stuff for a little bit, and I've been enjoying very much these discussions. Well, I have a question a little bit about your background. You're an Orthodox Christian, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Catholic myself. I'm a Catholic Christian. But you're a convert, right?
Yes.
So, if I'm not mistaken, because I've been watching some of your stuff, like your videos and streams, you come from an Egyptian background, Coptic, right?
No. My family's all from the Levant, but they're part of the Lebanese minority that lived in Egypt for like 200 years. So my family's half Orthodox, half Eastern Catholic.
Okay, so Maronite, right?
Yeah, Maronite and Melkite.
Interesting. Anything that attracted you more towards Orthodoxy than Catholicism?
Well, to be honest with you, when I was first getting into the theology stuff, I was very much still didn't know much about either. And most of my life, I had done a mixture of Orthodoxy and Catholicism. So for me, it wasn't like I was a devoted Catholic and then Orthodoxy ripped me out of Catholicism. It was more like I was kind of a semi-agnostic in the middle, and I was looking at both of them, and I wanted to see which would convince me more. So for me, the things that convinced me the most would probably be I had and still have some disagreements with the development of the papacy and the role of the papacy, not the primacy of Rome, but rather what the papacy is now. And then some disagreements with some theological stuff. So just so you're aware, I'm not discussing a ton of theology lately. That's kind of the thing that I'm foregoing for Lent, but that's the basic idea.
I wasn't intending to, but well, I've really been enjoying your stuff. That's all I got to say.
Oh, okay. Any other topics you want to bring up? Oh, thank you. I was just going to say, if you have any other topics, even if they have nothing to do with what we're talking about, you can bring them up.
Not much. I don't really have much else to talk about, but I'll call in again if anything comes to mind.
Cool.
And well, you live in Chicago, right?
I do.
Yeah, I like Chicago. I was there about 5 years ago. It was like December 2019.
Nice.
And because my dad had a job there, but he doesn't work at that company anymore. But yeah, they had a nice German-style Christmas market there. Have you ever been to it?
Oh yeah, that's the
you know what I'm talking about.
Mart. Yeah, that's on State or not on State. It's on like man, I forgot. It's on Adams. I think it's on Adams. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. That's a good market.
Mm-hmm. Well, I actually went to Chicago as a kid because my uncle used to work there. He works with like trains, and I enjoyed it then, and I enjoyed it as an adult. So yeah, everything's good with me. I love to read. You can see my bookshelf back here.
Nice collection.
I got a lot of stuff on history, theology, Sherlock Holmes. I got like some novels over there. I got some military history stuff, and yeah, it's all good. And I'm excited because I'm actually going on vacation to Mormon country in a few days. I'm going on vacation to Salt Lake City, and it's going to be a fun trip. I have a lot of stuff planned.
I've been to Southwest Utah, so I haven't been to Salt Lake City. I haven't really encountered any Mormons in real life, but for Southwest Utah, that was magnificent. We drove up from Vegas, and so you're literally driving upward for hours, and the climate there, it was like really impressive. So I like the nature of Utah a lot.
Oh,
Yeah,
Jim,
the nature does look really beautiful, and the history is very interesting, both from a theological and a historical perspective. I guess we
Definitely.
could say.
speaking of Utah and Mormons, actually, one of my friends growing up in Kuwait was a Mormon from Australia, another foreign student. Now he's in the Philippines because he did his mission there and is married to some Filipino Mormon girl. Yeah.
What's the name of your co-host, Jim?
This is Two Crooks. He's
Yes.
he's been co-hosting on and off for a few months.
Yeah. I guess
Cool. I
people
like your
just like.
Transformers avatar.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
And you
It's
said
my-
your background was Armenian, right?
Yeah, Armenian, technically Lebanese Armenian. So like Jim, I'm also from Lebanon. My family apparently, because due to the Armenian genocide, they had to flee the Armenian highlands and they ended up in Lebanon. So while Jim is Arab and I'm Armenian, we're also both Lebanese. Yeah.
Interesting. So are you Oriental or Eastern Orthodox?
Oriental Orthodox, because you go with what your dad is usually in the Middle East, and my dad he's not hyper religious, but he is Armenian Apostolic. My mom's Armenian Catholic. The division to them doesn't matter that much because both of them are Armenian churches, but I lean more towards Armenian Apostolic, although I tell this to Jim a lot. My theology itself might be Eastern Orthodox by default, since I'm listening to him and other Eastern
It's a
Orthodox.
little more on the
Christians.
Chalcedonian side.
Could be. To me, that's not the most pressing issue right now, but if it is, it wouldn't make too much of a difference. There's no Armenian EO church right now. I could be the only Armenian EO in existence, but that would only be by sheer default. But who knows, maybe if I'm pressed down, I would still be OO, and I still identify as Armenian Apostolic, both due to, again, that's what my dad is, and that's how we usually do it traditionally. But at the same time, I don't think the difference right now is that severe for me to take any hard labels. So sometimes I just say Orthodox. What do you think,
Okay.
Gene?
Well, my background is Spanish. All from my great grandfather was Spanish. Cuba, Puerto Rico, Spain. They were all from Spain originally. So Catholicism, I guess you could say, is my culture. I guess you could say. But I also do theologically agree with it. But there is a lot about Eastern Christianity I love. I even have some icons I got from Sacre Coeur in Paris. I have my own little prayer corner with Bibles and other stuff. It's off screen, but I did go to one Eastern Catholic. It was Ruthenian Catholic Church. I live in New Jersey. It's not far from where I live. I enjoyed the liturgy a lot, but I mostly just go to the Novus Ordo Mass in my hometown because it's easier to get to.
Very cool.
All right. Well, good night and good luck. Have a wonderful
you.
night, everyone. I'll
Awesome.
call in again if anything pops in my head.
Cool. Please do. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
All right.
And
But one more thing.
just because you might want to hear this as well, Tolkienomics mentioned the city or area of Burj Hamid in Lebanon, and that's actually an Armenian majority area in Beirut. But funny enough, I have no family that really lives there, but a bunch of them did congregate there after the genocide. So if you're ever in Beirut and want to see a bunch of Armenians, yeah, you go to Burj Hamid. Say hi to my people.
Interesting. There is actually, where I live in New Jersey, there's an Armenian church.
Nice.
And they had a fair there last June, and I got some souvenirs, and they had good food there as well. I really enjoyed it.
Sweet, sweet.
Awesome. Well, good night, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, guys, I hate to break it to you, but there will not be any more call-ins. Crook, you can stay in here for another moment. I did, in the thumbnail, promise a little Gene lore, so you can now grill me, and the audience will have to... I will answer everything. But I'm not going to have any more people come on. Sorry, guys. I only have like 10 minutes left, and I did promise a little Gene lore. George S.Y. says, thoughts on Marian devotion, too extreme or fine? Well, I don't know what... Thanks for the super chat, by the way. I don't know which sect you're talking about, like Catholic Marian devotion, Eastern Orthodox / Oriental Orthodox, because there is a difference. There's a lot of prayers to Mary in the Orthodox tradition, but the spirituality is quite different. But thank you anyway. I mean, I think it depends. The Orthodox do officially think that the Catholics venerate Mary too much. Like, even they do actually think that. If you ask monks, Greek monks and other monks, they'll say, yeah, the Catholics have raised her to a level that's even beyond what we do. But anyway, let's ignore 2 or 3 crooks and 5 crooks. Why don't we talk about the past, Mr. Crook?
Sure thing. Let's do it.
All right. Well, last time I showed you guys a video, or part of a video, where I and my friends did some Coke and Mentos rambunctious pranks, and I was later accosted off camera by the police. So that's one little tidbit of juicy information that people did not know. How about yourself? It's something we wouldn't know.
I've pretty much been an open book when I can be. I don't like to reveal too much of myself, if only because the modern internet just creates for a low trust environment. But yeah, one thing when I was growing up in school is that I had a really weird tendency to sometimes try to imitate people and all that, which ended up getting me made fun of a lot. And as I grew up, I realized it was one of my signs of autism, but the Middle East actually didn't really have a big mental health awareness kind of thing going on. So a lot of people who had autism, ADHD, Asperger's, and all that, they would never really get it treated up until recently. So this applied to a bunch of us, not just me, but other kids and all that were getting our treatment just super late. I don't know why that is. Maybe just mental health wasn't that well understood in the Middle East. But it is now, and a lot of my weirder tendencies have pretty much gone down. I still have random obsessions and can sometimes talk on and on. Though, yeah, when I was a kid, I was way more hyperactive and all that. So I'm just glad that I finally got something that helped me calm the hell down.
Very cool. Good to know. Yeah, there's stuff like that in a lot of people's families, just kind of part and parcel. We have a couple questions here. EBT says, how is it a half truth? That is the official position. There was a letter drafted to the Pope by some Greek monks, and they said, quote unquote, Mariolatry was one of the things that they consider still to be anathema between them and that. I didn't say that they worship Mary as a goddess, but they do think that the Mary veneration in Catholicism is spiritually incorrect for the Orthodox. Anyway, Masad says Coke and Mentos are as deadly as pagers. That's true. You can knock someone's eye out.
I have a Gimler question, by the way. So you were basically an Xbox kid growing up, right? Playing Halo 3, Halo Reach, and all that, right?
A mix of that and PS2. Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah, in the Middle East, actually, if you had an Xbox, you were seen as the weird one because everyone was all about that Call of Duty PlayStation kind of thing. But
yeah,
my friends and all we thought we were so cool because we were playing on Xbox 360. We were playing Halo. That was our obsession. And we thought all Call of Duty fans were just mindless drones and whatnot. And the funny part is that the Halo series pretty much ended up taking a massive nosedive, I think somewhere around 4 and 5.
Yeah,
and
it literally just became nothing after the third. It was over.
Yeah, well, I'd say after Reach, it was pretty much over.
Yeah. I don't remember. I honestly didn't even know that there were any after Reach until you just said that.
Yeah, and now I'm actually a bit more into Nintendo and all that stuff. Fire Emblem, Super Smash Brothers, Mario. And the funniest part is that I was obsessed with Pokemon growing up in the Middle East, and Nintendo Pokemon was actually another major obsession in the Middle East growing up. And I think it's funny I mentioned that because a lot of people think, wouldn't these Muslims want to ban Pokemon because it showed evolution or monsters and whatnot? But like, nope, people were playing Pokemon cards, or rather collecting them and looking at the pictures. People were playing video games with Pokemon.
I remember Yu-Gi-Oh! When I was in school, again, only just for a little bit in Lebanon. I remember Yu-Gi-Oh! I distinctly remember the cards, and guys, Blue Eyes, White Dragon, it was so cool. But I remember one guy charged me $20 for Blue Eyes, White Dragon. I thought it was the best deal of all time. But yeah, another thing would be for PlayStation, I played a lot of stuff. I played Crash Bandicoot, I forget which one, or maybe that is it. Yeah, the Bandicoot one, but with the cards. So Crash Bandicoot. Star Wars Battlefront 2, played a lot of that.
Perfect.
I love the Sly Cooper games, but I really didn't like the first one. I just played the second and third one.
Yeah,
And
when I had a
then,
PS2, Battlefront 2 was actually my major obsession because I was a huge Star Wars fan, but now like Halo Star Wars is kind of nothing, so
no, now it's literally rat shit now. But
Yeah.
Battlefront 2 was pretty awesome. And then on Nintendo, I had a GameCube. I still have it. It's in my closet.
Nice.
The silver one. And I played Super Smash Bros. Melee, Super Monkey Ball 2, not 1. That's garbage. I played the second one. And a couple other games like Lord of the Rings game or whatever. And then on Xbox, mainly just Halo. That was pretty fun.
It's actually funny you mentioned Lord of the Rings because when I talked about my neighbor in Kuwait, Lebanese Arab Orthodox, who looked almost exactly like you, wallah, just with a bit more tan skin, he had that Lord of the Rings game, and I just remember that one scene burned into my head of these giant elephant mammoth creatures or something.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was super cool. He was the more book nerdy one. He loved Harry Potter, he loved Lord of the Rings, and had a bunch of games based on that stuff. A lot of people are surprised to hear about it existing in Kuwait and the Middle East at that time, but come on, guys. No matter how much the more whiny people are, things either are just sold unofficially in Kuwait, especially in this one place called Al Rihab, which is this giant building in Kuwait. That's basically like a Kibahara, where they have a whole bunch of video games, Japanese imports, illegal pirated stuff, modded stuff. You could get pretty much anything there. It was
What I
a
find
massive
interesting
trip.
is that
Yeah.
people think that the Arab world is only two things. It's either war-torn shithole or Wahhabism with Ferraris. And it's really not. It's like most people who are not in a quote war-torn shithole will be like, I don't know, like, for me, I feel like the music and movie scene of the Arab world in like the 90s, and I don't remember it from that time period. I'm just watching this stuff now. And so when I look at it, I don't know, it kind of reminds me of like stuff from Europe in the 90s and even stuff from Latin America. It just kind of has that vibe. All the movies kind of have that vibe, that type of filming and coloring. It's not like, it's literally just like chopping heads and dying. Like there is normal stuff going on in that region of the world.
Yeah, exactly. And even in the Middle East, a lot of cultural obsessions weren't just American. A lot of European stuff was popular too. A lot of Japanese stuff was popular too. Japanese, especially because it was considered to be cheaper to import, which ironically kind of contributed to some weird ass Orientalism. Remember, Orientals can be Orientalist towards other Orientals because Japanese stuff ended up becoming seen as cheap. So that's kind of why me and my friends ended up becoming these Xbox heads in the late 2000s, early 2010s. But jokes on them, I'm back to being a Pokemon Nintendo nut. And Japanese media right now is a lot more popular in the Middle East. And you guys will think this is really funny, but even in Kuwait, especially in Kuwait, they don't like Western devs that much right now because of all the politics that they kind of input into games. And when they look at this,
Nobody does.
Yeah, and when they look at it, they keep saying, yeah, this is why we kept playing Call of Duty back in the 2000s, early 2010s, even though we're terrorists, because at least we look badass and cool compared to a bunch of the video games they're putting out now that depict us as, well, let's just say weirdos.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I was talking to this guy on Twitter a year or two ago, this Jordanian guy, and he agreed with me. He's like, guys, I like the tent dwelling Bedouin with 9 wives, like optic more than the ghetto terrorism optic. I'm like, yeah, I guess that's better. But the weirdo stuff's even worse. I don't know. It's a whole nother subject. But other than that, like I told people, I went to Catholic school as a kid, and I went there until middle school. Middle school, I went to an international school, very secular school. Then I went to an undisclosed college in the state of Indiana. And then when I was done with that, I actually stayed in that town another year and a half. COVID hit. So I'm like, I don't need to leave. I'm just going to stay in my cool, cheap-ass college apartment. It was super cool. And that's where I found old Cairo Jr. He was a rescue. He came from a broken home. So I got him, and I'm very happy that I did. And one time, I was watching Tropic Thunder with my girlfriend, and it was really late at night. And the centipede came into the apartment that was literally that big.
Oh, shit.
and I didn't notice it for the whole movie. And then I got up like when the movie was done, and I'm going to replace Cairo's water because back then, now I have the fountain, it runs automatically. Back then I had a bowl of water, I had to keep replacing it. Pick up his water bowl, I'm looking at, I'm like, what is that thing, like a stick? I'm like, oh man, like this is a huge centipede. So I dump it in the sink, and I had really low water pressure, and it was alive. It was trying to survive, and so I was trying to like kill it with the water, but the water pressure was so low, and it's like the thing just wouldn't go away, and then it slithered into the darkness of the sink, and that was the end of that adventure. But
I can hear the battle music playing in the background as it happens.
it was really stressful, man. And then, but other than that, that town was really awesome, and I did a lot of growing there physically too. I became fat, and then I lost it, and I got fat again. My heaviest was like 200 pounds, but almost zero muscle.
Hey, you would fit in right with a lot of Dubai and Kuwaiti teens who eat nothing but KFC or pizza, like Domino's pizza.
What is
Man.
that? Dejaj al Kentucky?
Yeah, Dejaj al Kentucky.
No, really. I got like really, really fat, zero muscle. So it was just like that weak, like fat, and it was really bad. And that was around the time we went to Utah with my dad, and he's like, "You're gonna walk, and you're gonna lose that weight." Then I did lose it, and I became stick thin. Like I looked like I got out of like a POW camp. It was horrible. And then now I hurt my back, and I gained weight again. And now I'm just normal. Now I'm just like working out, trying to get more muscle and stuff. So that's a very brief rundown of the physical element.
Yeah, working out in Kuwait was very difficult because during summer it's just a blazing desert, one of the hottest countries on earth. So that's also why a lot of people end up becoming, Jim in his fat arc, because there's nothing to do except go to the mall or stay inside where it's air conditioned and play video games. But that also means a lot of people don't construct things for recreation in the winter times. Or in the spring or fall when it's more beneficial to go outside. Though Kuwait has been changing that. There's, for example, Shahid Park, which is very nice to walk to. It's kind of, it's a big park, but it's also next to the city, so you can see a lot of the high rises next to it as you walk. And they're building a lot of indoor tennis areas. Tennis is pretty popular for people to watch, and my dad is pretty active in playing tennis in Kuwait, keeps him healthy at his age. I was very much obsessed with basketball because I went to an American school, I guess you can say, in Kuwait. And while soccer is obviously the most popular thing, I once again thought I could be special by playing basketball instead of playing soccer. But now I'm just, I only watch when there are like hype games pretty much.
I'm trying to find a photo of my large day. Wait. I think I got
Chunk Jim.
Unknown error. So fat I can't even screenshot it. I wasn't that fat. Like, it wasn't horrible. I mean,
so fat the pic is like 1 million terabytes to load.
Oh wait, you know what? I can't find it, but I can find one where I wasn't fat. I was maybe just like a little overweight, and I'd had a couple weeks of mediocre facial hair growth. Now I can actually grow some proper facial hair. I'm trying to get this onto my computer. Give me 1 second. A second. Do the share screen. Hang on. Oh yeah. So I was gonna say, there we go. Yeah, I was gonna say, like, another thing I noticed is that people get so obsessed with the weight stuff on the internet, whereas for me, I had to realize that I'm probably not gonna be one of these dudes who's like rail skinny. Nor do I have to be, nor should I enjoy that. But for a while, I was like really obsessed with it because like I'd been overweight and underweight. I was like, oh, I'll just say like super rail skinny. But thing is, not everybody's meant to do that. Like some people are just not supposed to be rail thin. Like my dad's not. Like my dad is pretty thin naturally. I didn't get that. I'm a little beefier, so like I don't mind just accepting that. Here's a photo of me in my old college apartment. There you go.
Oh, wow.
That's it. Yep. There you go.
Damn.
Although it was a good time, man. It was a good time.
Yeah. POV. I'm visiting my friend's house in 2013 in Kuwait. We're going to go play some Xbox Live and whatnot.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like.
It was a good times. I had really kind of like raspy facial hair back then. It didn't, like, it grew back quick, but it was just like Fu Manchu style and didn't connect that much. Now it's a lot better, but still. Wore that with pride.
Dude, it's nostalgic. Just put on a distache, man, and you'd fit right in.
Yeah,
And now you actually look like another person with facial hair that in my high school in Kuwait. Like with your hair that long and that facial hair, I knew another guy with those exact proportions, I guess you can say.
I've seen people with the
Jesus.
exact proportions. Kind of weird. Like I'm like, whoa, is that me? Is it not me? But yeah, I'm trying to think what else. Oh yeah, so another thing would be, I come from, guys, I'm sorry, I come from a broken home. My parents are divorced. So I saw my dad on the weekends. But actually, to be honest with you, I think that worked out for the better because my parents didn't get along. And actually, the weekends that I did spend with my dad, it was all quality time. So like we weren't wasting time not seeing each other. So actually, I saw my dad fine. Saw my mom tons. Saw my dad fine. So it was fine.
Yeah, actually, on the subject of divorced parents, I think there was only one kid, one of the American kids in my school in Kuwait who had divorced or separated parents. The idea was really foreign to me, but it wasn't until when I went to Canada that I realized it was more common in general. But yeah, I don't really judge or anything. I can understand when it can happen, why it happens, and whatnot. And hey, if you got to spend good quality time with your dad, then it benefited you. Then hey, what can I say?
I spent so much time with my grandparents too. My grandparents on my dad's side. My grandmother died last year, but my grandfather died I think 8 years ago. So, but before that, I had a lot of quality time with them. Like I would hear some people say, "Oh, I see my grandparents twice a year." I was like, "What's the matter with you? Like, what twice a year?" Like I saw them like probably 4 times a month. So tons of times.
Yeah, that
That's
wasn't.
both sides.
Yeah, that wasn't me. My grandparents always lived in Lebanon. It was difficult for them to visit Kuwait because they weren't working or anything. So they would have to rely on my dad and mom to secure the visas. So I'd see them 3 or 4 times a year. Right now, it's only my maternal
Dude,
grandmother who's alive.
Dude, look, this guy who is doing these accounts, Fat Gene. You thought I was gone. Now I'm back. Who is this guy, man? First it was Mohammed bin Salman. Now it's Fat Gene.
You forgot Khomeini. Someone get like Fat Khomeini in the chat.
Wait, so we have our Cyrillic friend. I don't know any Cyrillic, so I don't know what your name is. But he's saying, "How do you look older in this pic?" The thing is, I don't look that young. It's just that, I mean, I do look kind of young, but I don't look that young. I have a really low quality camera, guys, so I look more like airbrushed. In real life, my stubble is kind of dark, and I have some wrinkles under my eyes. Like I'm not a baby, but I have a laptop, and I'm so cheap that I never bought a camera. Like I've had this channel for almost 3 years. We're almost at 12,000 subscribers. I just don't have a camera. So I just film it on my laptop. And so that plus this light that I have here, that's literally it. Like I will get a camera and you will see that I'm not like a 2-year-old. But
yeah, you don't need to overproduce, man. This feels a lot more genuine than a lot of YouTube channels. That's why I like it so much.
Yeah, I'll keep it genuine, but it wouldn't help to be a little more HD. Another thing is there's an old comic I found, like I used to have on my phone. I don't know where it went, but it was a Lebanese and a Syrian guy who had these black beards, and everybody thought they looked like terrorists. And he said, "Hey, let's shave because the Westerners don't like the way we look." And they shaved, and then suddenly they just looked like 2-year-old Europeans. And it's like that is how it is with a lot of Levant people. Like,
yeah,
they look really young.
Dude, I have a passport photo with me just having shaved. I look 18, 17 in that photo. I'm 27. I'm just like barely a year younger than you, and that happens to me too. I have to have some stubble on me so people believe me when I say I'm not a teenager, guys.
Yeah. So the thing is, like, I'm 28 Nosferatu. You're obviously 4,000 years old because you're a vampire, but I'm 28. But yeah, that's the thing. I feel like it depends where you are from the Middle East, but I feel like people from Mesopotamia, the Levant, and Egypt have like fuller faces. Like we don't have a beard; it looks really young. Whereas I've seen some Saudis that are more like slender looking. Maybe they look older when they don't have beards, but it just depends on the area. I feel like a lot of people from the Levant and from like Iraq are a little beefier.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's, I mean, I think that's what I've seen personally.
No, I'd agree. In fact, I can even tell, oh, this guy's definitely Lebanese because I can tell from his face, a little more beefier. I think Armenians and even Georgians, if our young gamer friend could confirm, are also in the same boat. I know I am, but I think also Armenians from Armenia and Georgians have this thing with them too. So yeah.
Yeah, I feel like if you look at like who's, I don't believe in analyzing phenotypes like a weirdo, but generally Saudis and Arabians as a whole are a little more slender,
Yeah.
whereas people from the Levant and Egypt are a little beefier. But then I also feel like people from Northwest Africa are also slender. They're not as beefy as Egyptians.
Right. And then we get to the anomalies like in the Eastern Gulf, Bilad al Khalij countries, where they're a little bigger because of the food they eat. And, it's difficult to work out when it's scorching hot most of the time.
Wait,
So that's an anomaly.
He's Palestinian Syrian, I believe. Just when I let the beard grow, I look like Nebuchadnezzar. When I shave, I look like young Johnny Depp. That's how it is, man.
Nice.
Don't upgrade the camera. We don't want to see your filthy face. Well, thank you, Emmanuel. He says, no, don't upgrade the camera. Super chat. Not that you could with this cheap super chat. I don't even know what that converts to, but I wasn't gonna get like a production quality camera. Just something slightly better. Like, when I do my non-live streams, it's a recorded video. That's just my phone. I think that looks pretty good enough. Like, what else do you want, man? Like, this is not like the kind of production where we're doing like a 45-minute analysis of Rugrats. I don't need the super HD stuff.
Oh my God, dude. Please, let's never do that, because Rugrats actually was made by, Yahud people.
Yahud!
And I think some people would probably just start spamming the comments with the worst stuff you could imagine because of that.
I know. There's one episode of Rugrats I saw on 4chan, and it was like telling the story of the Maccabees. And this 4chan is like, guys, this was a childhood show of mine. I didn't know the Jews corrupted me. It's like, all right, I guess we're not gonna cover that.
Like, guys, in the Muslim countries, they showed some of that Jewish and Christian stuff on kids' TV. If it was a part of it, they would only really censor hardcore swearing, violence, and suggestive stuff. Nobody converted because of that.
No, dude, there was like a sorcerer on a cartoon. Therefore, everybody in Saudi Arabia turned into a mage. Like, but yeah, you're right. Yeah, I mean, this was a pretty fun stream. I'm gonna head out for now. Thank you, Crooks, for the. Stay away from those clones, though. Okay, so
don't worry. One shall stand. All of them else shall fall.
That's how it is, man. All right, I will see you around. Okay, guys, thanks for watching the Gene Show. This was kind of casual chat today. We did not have a topic set, so there wasn't much to talk about, but we did have a lot of good discussions. We had some talks about liberalism in some Orthodox and Catholic churches. What do you do about that? Personal enemies versus God's enemies, government systems throughout history. I'm forgetting what we talked about at the very beginning, but we had some great questions. And then we just kind of did, basic cultural slop discussions, Rugrats et al. And then I did promise the viewers some lore about Jeem. So at the end, we did a little bit of Jeem lore stuff. But, you guys still don't know that much. Like, there is more to come. There is more to come. So thank you, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who called in. I definitely appreciate the chat there. And Fat Jeem. Dude, I thought I told you that wasn't actually the fat pig. Like, I'm just not super skinny. But I don't have a picture of me when I was obese on my computer. I was pretty big. I ate a lot. I would go to Longhorn. I would order the honey-soaked bread as not even the appetizer, just the amuse-bouche. Then the cold Caesar salad as the appetizer. Gotta be a little healthy. But I would have the honey bread with butter, obviously. Then I'd have a gigantic New York strip. Eat all the fries. Have myself a beer or two. Then I would consume a molten lava hot chocolate cake. Usually split that with my girlfriend back then. Then I would waddle back home, plop on the couch like this, and an hour or two later snack until midnight. No, until 4 a.m. And so that's how I gained that power back then. Nowadays, I have a more healthy meal, but I do snack sometimes, and I like to have coffee. More info about Jeem and his unhealthy smoking and caffeine-induced tirades another time. Thank you for watching. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video, though I don't know who would share this video. But someone asked, do I want to be a novelist full-time? I would absolutely love that. I'm sending my book to literary agents as we speak. And so one of them will pick it up. I'm sorry, but this book is not just going to be some cheapo KDP Amazon thing. If you want me to write theology, I will. I can write theology books, but I'm just warning you, they're not going to be as long as the Misunderstood Bible. So that book is 355 or 4 pages. Took a ton of time to edit. I'm probably just going to do like an 80, 90 page mini book, sell for $10. If you guys want that, that'll go on KDP Amazon. But my real like fiction book that I put a lot of effort and creativity into, that'll probably be in a store someday soon. All right. See you guys. That's it.
Freakiness is a part of life. Original Baramonga along with the two bad, wicked youths of rap. Not a mercy, whoa.
What's the business? Talk paper when I'm riding by. They know it's drizzle, he the truth off the east side. I know who ain't got my money because they ducking high. I grind for me and mine. I got the green light. I got to get it how I live it. That means front line. I got them zips, I got that.